Just say that you identify as a cisgender woman and that we're gonna talk about how we experience gender.
Alright, I like that. Hi everybody, my name is Jess. I am here to talk to everyone a little bit about gender identity. So I will start with saying that I myself identify as cisgender. That means someone whose sex assigned at birth aligns with their gender identity, which in my case would be female. My pronouns are she, her, and herself.
Hello, my name is Shane. I identify as a transgender man, and my pronouns are he, him, and his.
Perfect! So I guess we'll start with defining the word transgender. Transgender is an umbrella term. It refers to anyone whose gender identity does not match up with their sex assigned at birth.
So when we're talking about sex assigned at birth, it refers to a lot of things. You know, when we're born, the doctor says, oh, it's a boy or it's a girl. In my case, I was assigned female at birth, but my internal gender identity of male never felt like that fit. So that's why I identify as transgender. We're assigned sex at birth based on different things. First, chromosomes, second, hormones, and lastly, anatomy. So I was born with female chromosomes and female anatomy, although I didn't feel like that fit.
So, on the flip side of that is gender identity. That refers to someone's internal sense of gender. So, in Shane's case, he obviously did not feel like a female and took measures to change that. So, he is now feeling more aligned with his gender identity, which is male.
So because transgender is an umbrella term, there are a lot of terms that fall under that. But in the same way that all squares are rectangles, not all rectangles are squares. One of the terms that we hear is transsexual. Although I technically identify as transsexual, it's more of a descriptor and less of an identity. When we think about transsexual people, we hear the typical story on our head. Oh, I was born in the wrong body and I felt that was incorrect for me, so I took steps to change that. That would be a person who identifies as transsexual. However, I would feel uncomfortable if somebody, especially a cis person, came up to me and was like, oh, so you're a transsexual? That feels a little bit medical. I don't really know anybody that identifies specifically as transsexual. So a better term to use is transgender, although technically they both mean transgender.
So cis people don't say transsexual. Don't say that people are transsexual. Don't call them transgenders. We're gonna leave the S. It's not a verb.
Also, in the same way, we don't like to hear transgendered people or transgendered person. That implies that something happened to make me trans. And really, it's just a descriptor. So transgender person or transgender individuals is a good way to put it. Also, please never use the term transvestite or tranny. These are hugely offensive terms, and we don't like to hear that at all.
So, instead of referring to someone as a transsexual, there are a lot of other terms out there that can refer to someone whose gender identity is on the opposite end of the gender binary. There is also trans man, trans woman, or for people that exist in a less specific identity, transmasculine and transfeminine.
When we're talking about transgender identities, specifically transmasculine or trans man, appropriate pronouns to use are he and him. Just focus on the second word. So man or masculine goes with he and him, whereas transfeminine or trans woman, she and her, goes with feminine or woman.
Pronouns are super important. For everyone who is cisgender, this doesn't really come up for us in day-to-day thinking because we identify with the sex we were assigned, so it's not an issue. But for everyone else that doesn't necessarily align with that, it's something to be accountable for as a cisgender person. Be sensitive to other people's pronouns. They're really important in a way that we can never understand.
Other terms you might hear used are FTM, which stands for female to male, or MTF, which stands for male to female. Personally, I would identify as FTM, meaning I was assigned female at birth and now I identify as male.
So there are also people who necessarily don't exist on the binary of genders, i.e. male or female. These people may identify as genderqueer or non-binary. They view gender as a spectrum, something that can be played with and explored, not necessarily nailed down to one box or the other. And they also fall under the umbrella that is transgender.
So, although non-binary people do fall under the trans umbrella, non-binary is also considered a good umbrella term for people that don't identify strictly as either man or woman. When we're talking about people, non-binary is a good term to use. People may identify as androgynous, which means that they like to exist in that middle space. They don't like to present male or female. They like to present as androgynous. Also, gender non-conforming basically implies that you don't conform to gender. That is less of an okay term to use than non-binary. Also, agender people feel that their gender is outside the gender binary, as well as third gender.
Pronouns for people who exist in this section of the umbrella or otherwise may feel more comfortable using gender-neutral pronouns like they and them. There are also other pronouns that aren't as commonly found in the English language, but do exist, called ze and zir. These are also gender-neutral pronouns that someone may be more comfortable with than he or him or she and her.
Just to use that in a sentence, because I know that it can be confusing if it's your first time hearing them. Z went to the store, or Zir picked up Zir book. One shows possession, one just states identity.
The same with they and them. They went to the store. They can do it for themselves.
Pronouns for non-binary folks are very important because if you don't feel like a man or a woman, using masculine or feminine pronouns doesn't feel like it fits. So it's always important to ask people for their pronouns.
Or even something as simple as when you introduce yourself, add your pronouns. Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Jess and my pronouns are she and her.
Hello, my name is Shane. It's nice to meet you. My pronouns are he and him.
Thank you so much. That clears up any questions I may have had. That way, if you're not sure how someone identifies their gender, you don't jump down their throat by asking for their pronouns right off the bat, because that could be invalidating for someone's identity, versus just stating that you are knowledgeable about pronouns and about people who understand different pronouns.
It can be considered kind of invasive if you're just existing in the world and then someone's coming up to you, oh, what are your pronouns? Because I can't tell. Whereas if I'm just meeting someone and it's part of the conversation, it shows not only are you knowledgeable, like Jess said, but then everyone feels respected and included because you're asking for pronouns. It's very important that you take time to educate yourself because although you might not know it, there are trans people all around. I'm a Towson student, I'm around as well, so when people come to me with a knowledge already, we can have deeper and better conversations than if people have no idea. So this is something that you're interested, take time to look it up and educate yourself.
Thanks everybody, I hope you learned a little something.